Welcome to the Win-Win Evangelism podcast. My name's Tina Waldrom from Evangelism in Australia. I have a fantastic discussion for you today. We're going to be talking about something a little bit different. How sport, from the grassroots clubs to professional teams, can be a powerful platform for the gospel in Australia. And today my guest is Kade Klemke. You may know him. He's a former Essendon Bomber and standout player coach for the Queanbeyan Tigers, with multiple premierships, awards and a place in the Tigers team of the century. Now working with 360 Sports Australia, which is an affiliate with Fellowship of Christian Athletes, Kade basically inspires athletes and coaches across the country to use sport as a platform for the gospel. And in the leading sporting nation of the world, Kade, it's great to have you along.
Great to be here again, Tina, and chatting about how sport and faith can come together.
Yeah, amazing. We have had you on the show once before, which was fantastic. Tell us a little bit about this new role that you're in. Can you, in a nutshell, tell us a little bit about who you're working for and what you do?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's probably a few years ago where God gave me a vision about using sport and using sport to reach people. And 2017, I think it was, we had these guys turn up in Melbourne who were from the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I didn't know them at the time, never heard of them at the time, but just a friend invited me to come along, and they were sharing about using sport to reach people and make disciples, and which got me quite excited at that time. And years following, I was just too busy doing church, leading a church here in Canberra and coaching a football team. And then in the last year, I felt God say to step away from football coaching, which I knew was God because I didn't want to do it. And then a friend that I just got to know over the last year or two had joined FCA, joining them and called it 360 Sports Australia, and he invited me to come along. And after a lot of prayer and time discussing, I really felt this was the next part of my journey and why God wanted me to step back from coaching.
Amazing. And what a great athlete you are. I mean, you even look super fit, which is not how I'm looking or feeling today. How do you see sports as that unique opportunity for Christians to bring the gospel in Australia?
Yeah, look, I think sport in Australia is a real mission field, or it's a marketplace. I think we have the highest viewership of sport in the world per capita, and participation, I think the last I read was 13 million in sport, some form of involvement in sport. So there's a lot of people who are involved, and I think as Christians, it's a great way to keep fit and do things outside of the work. But it's also a great mission field and great place to build relationships. And yeah, the more we can encourage people to, that every day is a mission. Like we're not just isolating ourselves to our workplace, but some people do have a passion for sport. A thing that I like to use is gifts, passions, and story, GPS. Everyone has a story, everyone has a passion, everyone has gifts, and I think for me, I have a story in sport. Played football, coached football for many, many years. It's a passion of mine. And I think when you plant the gospel in something you're passionate about, it's gonna last. It's gonna go long, and then use your gifts. I feel like I have gifts of leadership and equipping, and so I guess it makes sense for God to use me and help others want to reach people through sport.
Yeah, amen to that. I've started playing pickleball, can you believe?
I do believe that. I think pickleball is becoming a very popular sport.
So I used to be a tennis coach a long time ago. You may not know that as a listener, but that is true. A long time ago, I was a tennis coach. So pickleball, I'm right back into it. But even at that level, Kade, of just seeing the people that I interact with on a one-to-one basis, it's a no-brainer to be able to somehow connect the gospel and share with those people. Tell me about the coaches that you work with. Like, I know that you can help coaches that happen to be Christians be more effective to somehow sharing their faith in that space. How can that even look? And are people having to cross a line of integrity to do that? How do you approach that?
Yeah, look, there's a statement Billy Graham made that one coach can impact more people in a year than the average person does in a lifetime. Yeah, I think it depends how we use that power, and I think again a lot of the way we've done life as Christians is we've kind of separated, church from sport. But how do we coach from a kingdom perspective? How do we see these opportunities to serve the players that we lead? And it's not about winning. It is about winning. It's about winning hearts for Christ, but not winning on the scoreboard. And I think that's something I've had to learn over my journey. When I first started coaching and I was successful, it was about me and how far I could get in my career, and then God really did a work on my heart that it's about Him, that the world centers around Him, not me, and it's about loving people. And I think that's actually when my coaching really started to have more impact off the field, not just on the field. And so I guess my heart is to help coaches as well, to really think about, are they coaching from a kingdom perspective? Is this how Jesus would want to coach? And I've just been getting alongside a few coaches. We've got a little coaches huddle that we meet every week. And it's really, we just do a study together, and we're just applying the Bible into, God's word into how it looks in our sporting culture, and as coaches, how we can help and walk with people. And the guys are really shifting their perspectives on coaching, and it's actually making them fall more in love with coaching and really understanding that the impact they can have.
Mm. Yeah, that is amazing. And it is interesting to see how much influence a coach does have. I mean, we're a big sporting family, and so I see the coaches that are in our family's life and how much that impact is, whether it's a good or whether it's not so good, whether it's that kingdom impact or whether it's not. So there's a big difference. What's the difference? When you say he's a coach coaching from a kingdom perspective, what type of things would you expect to see in a coach that was coaching from that perspective?
I think it's person before player. They see them as a person, not as a pawn on a chessboard. Coaching can be a lot about X's and O's and, winning and putting guys in position, leaving guys off the field because you want to win a game. I think if you can become a coach, it's about a person first, like you see them as Jesus sees them. And also I think coaching, it's even not just your own team, but thinking about the opposition even. The definition of competition. We treat it as us versus them, but the original definition was working with the other team or with the other individual. And so if you have that mindset, it changes everything. You're thinking, well, how do I work with this other team? Yes, we can still celebrate when we win and do things, but there's something about our psychology where when it's done out of love, when we perform out of love and not by fear. I think a lot of coachings come out of fear, and there's a wonder why we're seeing so many teenagers quit sport, because they've probably been coached out of fear, and fear. If you're driven on fear, you can see the health benefits. It doesn't. There's a lot of health that comes with that and the stress, but if we can create these environments of love, that's God's heart. That's the kingdom. You're also going to see people are open to God as well and faith. But yeah, I think it's just really those coaches who generally care about every person, even those who aren't their best players. I think because that's who God, he loves everyone equally.
So true. Now tell me about that, how people, or tell me some stories of, might be from your own life or it might be from a great kingdom mindset coach that you know in the sporting world, and how people have become interested about faith through their position, I guess, on coaching that kingdom position.
Yeah, there was a guy I was walking with. He grew up in a traditional church and it was kind of walked away, but we started having conversations and started reading the word together. And I was just chatting about, the kingdom perspective of coaching. And over time, we were just journeying together. And he shared with me a pretty powerful story. He noticed there was a player turning up late to training. And in the past, he would have just ignored it or been annoyed because this player would just continually be late. And then when he started to realize it's about caring for the person and it's that kingdom perspective, he went and spent time with this player and just said, "Hey, is everything okay?" And what he found out was that he'd been living out of home, because he didn't want to be at home with his mum was getting abused. And so he was kind of trying to avoid it, and then he was trying to catch the train, like he couldn't get a lift to training. So anyways, this coach ended up picking him up for training, and he said that kid just went from like not really interested in the football to being one of the better players. So I guess that just shows you the impact of a kingdom. But even for me, like I've been able to, like being a senior coach, we have reserves because of that mindset of going, everyone is valued. I've been able to spend a lot of time with guys who don't even play in first grade and inviting them over for dinner, and I've just seen a lot of fruit of these guys going, wow, the senior coach values me, even though I may never play senior football, but in return, that's turned into great God conversations, and they've been part of our small groups, and so yeah, I guess that's what coaches, if they can really have that value for all and not just look at the best players or just look at winning, there's some great opportunities and great conversations we can have.
Yes, absolutely. What do you say, or what's the conversation that you have with, say, I'm a professional athlete and we've got a few incredible professional athletes in Australia that we know about. There would be hundreds and hundreds more, hundreds of thousands more of Christian athletes, but there's a few that are really high up there and we see them in the media. What type of conversations is your organisation having with these people or wanting to have with these people to encourage them to be that light, so to speak, for the gospel?
Yeah, look, our goal's not going after the top athletes. I think sometimes as churches, when you see this amazing person's got a great platform, we go after them and try and get them speaking in our churches because we think they'll but Jesus showed us that to value all and value that he will make disciples through the people he does. He didn't, the 12 he chose weren't the superstars of that time. But I also would say, like, it's a hard environment. It's not about using them. It's actually the challenge of playing professional sport. What people don't understand is, they're competing in competitions that take up their Sundays. They're often traveling for weeks, and then just the culture, it can be quite isolating. I mean, me myself being involved in that professional sport, it was quite isolating for me. And so I guess our heart is to walk alongside them, saying you're not alone. And our heart is to connect them with other Christians in that. And so at the moment, we're actually doing a mentoring. We mentor some of the up and coming Christian athletes to that elite pathway, and we're getting mentors who've been involved in that professional pathways and been Christians through that, and how to walk your faith. And I found that's been really helpful for these kids that are coming through, and hopefully they will then help others in their sporting club, and then hopefully they'll see that as a platform. Because at the end of the day, they do have that platform to share their faith, and but they also have the spotlight on them. And so, who's walking with them, who understands what they're going through, who's keeping them accountable, and just encouraging them to not be afraid to stand up. And I guess that's their heart. Like, and it doesn't matter, you know, the top athletes to the lowest. We want to help everyone in those sporting cultures, because sporting cultures at times, it's not easy. Sporting clubs don't have great cultures, and so it's easy to fit into that. And so I guess our heart is to, yeah, have support around them and encourage them with others who have walked that journey before, and say you can do this, you can live your faith, and not just live it out and be a light, but actually help others in their faith, or walk with those who they're close to.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it that there are specific resources out there that connect sport and faith, obviously. Tell us a little bit about those. Like what makes those resources, what's in those resources that makes them a little bit different, makes them on that sporting edge?
Yeah, look, again, we partner with FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and they're the second largest distributor of Bibles in the world, behind Gideon's. And so they have sports Bibles, they have athletes Bibles, they've got coaches Bibles, and they've got devotionals in the back of those Bibles that just, yeah, I guess put faith in a sporting context. It doesn't mean the words changed, but it just helps go for athletes. Okay, what does this look like for me in my sporting world? But we also have some great resources on how to create, discipleship through sport. We have training on that. We have we got huddles, how to create these sports huddles, and but also I think, resources are good, but I think it's also we've got people who can walk people through that. Right now, working with a church on how to reach their local sporting club. And, I can use those resources, but I think the value is the relationship where I'm just encouraging them what they can do in their own sporting club. And I've just had a conversation with another church the other day that they heard of what's going on. They're seeing these guys come to faith in their football club. They want to do the same. So I think that's, the resources sometimes us as well. It's not just the things that we have, but FCA do have some incredible resources that we've been able to access, and then they also got a coaching Bible study as well, like they call it the 360 coach that you can use. Yeah, they're good resources to get us thinking about how does faith look like in the sporting world.
Yeah. So really, if I was a Christian that was coaching a sport, I could really lean into what you're doing. Imagine, say, I'm a mother and I know three other mothers in my sporting club, that might be a basketball club or a netball club, I could really lean in and get some help from you guys. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes, definitely. I think that's the heart, and not just giving resources, but building connections with other Christian coaches, other Christian athletes, whether it's the top to club sport. Yeah, really, we really want to build a network that we can encourage each other. I think that's where strength comes from. That's where discipleship. It's through teams of people. And when I was in Melbourne, when I went to Essendon, I was pretty alone in my faith, and I reached out to some other Christians, or the chaplain, Cam Butler, and he ended up connecting me with some other AFL guys who were Christians, and we ended up getting together for a coffee regularly, and that just really helped me, encourage me that there are others in this sport, but not just to connect, but then also how do we encourage one another in a similar context to live out our faith. And I think the more we do that across the nation and encourage one another, I think people will be more encouraged to live out their faith more.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a unique little niche, isn't it? To know like sports. Like I'm thinking of kids that I even know myself that are under 20 that love sports, that love Jesus, that would actually probably love to have more sports orientated faith stuff because that's really what that's their passion in life. What do you see for the next 5 to 10 years with the work that you're doing, partnered with FCA in Australia? What are you hoping to see?
To be honest, I'm hoping to see the church get outside the walls and start, going into these sporting clubs and seeing it as a mission field. Where I grew up, and it's actually where I'm moving to the end of this year because we feel God leading us down there around the Albury-Wodonga area. These country towns, towns of 1,000, 3,000. I mean, they revolve around sport. I mean, it's like the church of the community. Everyone from juniors all the way to seniors, netball, everyone goes there for the sport. I mean, we're told as a church that we should be in the marketplace. That is the marketplace. That is, that's where all the community is. So if we can encourage the church to see that as a mission field, to see them go into the football club, you don't have to be playing, you don't have to be a coach. You can be a trainer, you can be a chaplain, you can be just on a committee member, or you're a parent. But how do we work together as the church? And I guess that's probably what I feel God's been saying to me, that it's to really help the church go into these sporting clubs. I mean, I've seen God do incredible things in my own football club, seeing people baptize coaches and players. And I guess I feel like God now wants me to go and help others in this same space. And so I think that's part of it. And I think the same with the mentoring elite pathway athletes. Really, we're just disciple making. That's what it is. We're helping them live out their faith in the sport, and then them making disciples. And yeah, again, in a space that you love, like I said, if you put the gospel in somewhere where you have familiarity with, it's just amazing. The gospel just spreads, and you don't even need to do a study on sport. Like our group, we just read the Bible together, and we get together because we love sport. We just talk about it naturally because that's what we love. That's what we're passionate about. And then we just talk about the gospel. It's amazing how, and then they just start inviting others from their football club. And I guess that's what happens when you plant the gospel in a space, and then people just start inviting others. And I think people, what I'm noticing is that they're more willing to step into a Bible study than they are in a church on a Sunday. I mean, that's the group that I'm leading at the moment. A lot of them only just came to church on Sunday, but they've been reading the Bible with us for 5 months. one of them, it's so foreign to them. They never grew up with church. They don't understand church lingo, and they came to church and they were like, "What was that?" Like they didn't. They just. But in a sitting around the Bible and chatting about it, it makes sense for them. Like they feel more comfortable. Now, our heart is that we want to see them be part of wider community. I'm not against the Sunday at all, but how many people in sporting clubs, we invite them to a Sunday service and they say no, and we think, oh, they're not interested. But what if we just invited them to read the Word with them and open our homes to them and do the journey with them? I wonder if there's a lot more people open. Well, that's what I've noticed. I can't say that for every city, every town, but I've noticed that there are people open to the Word, and I've seen that with the churches I'm leading. They've started these huddles, small groups, and they've got people coming there that aren't seem too keen on Sunday service. That maybe down the track they'll get there. Hopefully, there's a few that are. But there's some who love reading the Bible, and I think as you disciple them, they'll love what Jesus loves. That's the heart. We're trying to get them to Jesus, not church. And if they
Yeah.
love Jesus, they'll love what Jesus loves, and he loves the church. That's his bride. And so, yeah, I think we've got to have that mindset of discipleship. And yeah, I guess that's my heart, is just seeing the church get out of the walls and seeing that there's sporting clubs, especially country towns, country churches. I really love to walk alongside that. But yeah, we're just kind of going where God leads us.
I have talked with many parents, and their kids don't play that sport that you came from, that AFL, making comments like, "Oh, gosh, that is such a tough sport to be a part of. People are fairly rough, they're fairly crude." I think that's a massive generalisation, but do you find that footballers particularly, are they generally closed, or are they more open than what we think?
I think they're more open to conversations than we think. They might be just not as open to church on a Sunday.
Mm. Yeah,
And I think,
great answer.
Jesus, like, who's the people who he attracted the most? The broken, the most who are lost, the rough ones. And the religious leaders, they struggle with that. And I feel like that's sometimes our Sunday church can struggle with the football culture, because they're the rough ones, they're the broken ones. But I think they're the most lost, they're the most open to faith. And that's why I think it's just that, we as the church have lost our hands. There's a great story of a blind woman who her family looked after and fed her whole life. And one day she went into hospital, and the doctor said, "Why are you feeding her?" Like in one of the reports, that her hands are still active, like they can work. And they said, "Oh, well, that's just what she's used to." And they said, "Well, just put a plate of food on the side of the bed, and we'll see." Anyways, after a day or two, she got really hungry, and she ended up using her hands to reach for that plate, and then she started feeding herself. Anyway, she started to learn Braille, and then she studied all these degrees. And I feel like that's the church. Like, we've just forgotten how to use our hands. It's we've forgotten how to go out, share our faith. Learning to ask more questions and always give answers. And so I guess I get it. Like, we haven't had a lot of people go out and show us how to do this. The old school way was to invite your friends to church, and I did that growing up. But I was convinced that God's always working. He's always on the move. He's working in people's hearts. And I think I'm the one that's not looking. I'm the one that's not. I've stuck in my own ways. And so I've just been convinced to pray and go into a football club. Go, God, who are you working on today? Who's someone that's, and it's been amazing. I've seen some. Honestly, I'd be going into our football club, and I just felt God prompt me on a person, and he was probably one of the wildest guys in our footy team. And I just went straight up to him, and I just said, "Hey, man, hey, what's your views on God?" And he's like, "This is weird, mate, but I was thinking about God this week." And we sat down and chatted, and he's a guy that's been going to church. It's been a journey with him. Like, it's been a few years, and he's come in and out of our house and read the Bible with him. But he just told me he's moved away, and he just told me that he's been going to church. Not through me, because God does the work, not me.
Mm.
And then there was another boy that I felt God to invite him to church, and I knew that was a God prompt, because I'm not used to doing that. I usually invite for a coffee and chat about God, and anyways, I invited him, and I had one of the guys who was a footballer Christian came to me and said, "Oh, I think we should invite him to church." And I said, "Man, I already did." And so it was a confirmation, and he just said, "Yes, I'll come." never been in a church. He was curious. Like, he'd never been to a funeral, never been to a wedding. He didn't know what a service would look like. And then, yeah, but he ended up coming to our small group after that because I knew he was open, so I invited him to the small group. He stopped going to the church on Sunday because he just said again, I don't fully understand it. I try and encourage him. But we've been reading the Bible now for a year and a half together every week. He still hasn't made that full decision, but who knows? He might step foot back into a church. I don't know, but my heart is to continue, and I'm just seeing him grow in his faith, starting to do things, and share even with people. So he's kind of is following. But again, how many we try and do things in our own strength or in our own ways, in our own structures? And again, I think the power of the Holy Spirit as well. Like, we need to be looking for that person of peace. It's like coaching. You love working with those who respond and ask questions and have they're coachable. Well, it's the same with God. Who are those people who are responding and they're open to faith? That's the people we should walk with and do the journey. And just because they may not want to go to the church service on a Sunday does not mean they're not open to God. I think just read the Word with them. Start opening the Bible, and again, we have those resources. We can walk people through that and how to do that. But yeah, I think I know I went on for a while here, but yeah, I just want to encourage people that I believe everyone can be a disciple maker. Everyone is a disciple maker. That's why Jesus chose the 12.
100%.
Yeah, and I got to see that with FCA. I went to the thing, fundraising training, the boot camp, and I had that in the back of my head. I sat down with someone and he was sharing that every person's a disciple maker, and I sat in the room and I was chatting to this guy, and he had a heart transplant when he was a baby, like young 5-year-old. He had a bit of a disability, and I was just chatting. He was raising money for him to do FCA, and he was just sharing his story. And I was just saying, man, this story is incredible. He started up esports games, and because he can't play sport because of his heart, but because of that, he's now reading the Bible with all these guys. Like, he's a guy that doesn't speak clearly, and I was just thinking in my head, I'm like, this guy in a Sunday church, he'll never preach at the front. He'll probably never lead a Bible study group because he can't speak well enough. But in that context, in his passion and his story, he's making disciples. And I feel like, that's something we need to remind it is the way we do church, stopping people being disciple makers because we have a certain form of how church should look. And I feel like, yeah, I think that was a wake up call for me. I feel like God was I lead a church. I've been leading for 10 years, and I'm not against the church in any way. I love the church. It's Jesus' bride. I want to empower the church. I want to walk with the church. I just think we need to really think about what does discipleship look for everyone, not just the pastors.
Yeah, that's a great response, and lots to think about, and so many thinking in this space right now and trying to do that better. So there is an event coming up on October the 29th, and I want to drop the in the show notes. We'll have some links there so that you can find out about that event. That's going to be in Melbourne. I appreciate not everybody listening is from Melbourne, Australia, but if you are, you can connect with Kade and some people on that night. That'll be in the show notes for you. I'm going to drop the website as well, which is FC, which is the abbreviation for Fellowship of Christian Athletes, 360sports.au, 60sports.au. So everything will be there in the show notes for you. I hope today that this has been really helpful for you, that you've got some information, you've got some ways that you can connect your sporting passion to the gospel and how you can share that. So Kade, thank you so much. Look forward to having you on again one day.
Yeah, that's great, Tina. Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing.